Hello everyone, it's Laffy Traffy. I have recently seen film Red just a couple of days ago on its opening night, and I have some thoughts about it. This isn't going to be super in-depth, but in-depth enough to get my points across and just talk about all the major things that I feel like are important. And here's a kitten. Just some important things that I think are worth mentioning about the movie. So, of course, spoiler alert if you have not seen film Red, and if you haven't, please go see it if it is out. I mean, I feel like it has been forever since this movie was announced and released in Japan. And finally, we can see it. Before we get into it, make sure you subscribe and like the video and check out my One Piece reactions and other things, Twitch and Twitter and Instagram for more One Piece anime and gaming content. But let's get into the review. Also, as a disclaimer, I've only seen this movie once and it was subbed, so, you know, reading intricate lyrics and trying to watch the movie does make it difficult, and I often do miss things, so this is just a general thing that this is just a once-over. I do intend to watch this movie as many times as I can, but for right now, I just watched it once. This was my initial reaction. This isn't an analysis necessarily, this is just my initial thoughts. So I had some time to think about it, but these notes that I have here were written right when I got home after the movie. I wanted to get everything down, everything that was fresh in my mind that really had an impact on me. And of course, the biggest thing that I'm sure you've heard by now is that the soundtrack is absolutely amazing. Uta's voice and the songs, the choreography, everything that was implemented into this song that basically made the whole movie a musical was amazing. And overall, it was really a great movie and definitely a change of pace compared to other One Piece movies that are very by the book, big strong bad guy has to get punched really hard to win. This is not that. Every song from Uta was a banger, and I specifically did not listen to the soundtrack prior to watching the movie, of course, because I did not want any spoilers. The only one I listened to in full was the new Genesis opening song, but the rest of them were completely new, and I had no idea what theme or anything that they were going to be, and they were all really great, but especially Fleeting Lullaby and Top Musica, absolutely my favorites, because that grungy rap style of Fleeting Lullaby was just such a great way to get into Uta's head, because when she came out there with like the crazy eyes and that aggression, that grungy rap type, that grungy voice that she uses was amazing, and you could really feel her descent into madness at that point. And to top it all off, Top Musica, I mean, Top Musica itself was something straight out of a science fiction artistic rendition of something evil. And when the bitch started singing in wingdings, I was like, hello? That was horrifying, as her singing summoned Tot Musica, this Frankenstein creature of music and evil. Very terrifying. This movie was terrifying, but in the best way. It was a great amplification of the plot and moving the story forward, but also, like I said, really digging deep into like the psychological horror that this movie's undertone was. Not really even an undertone, it was pretty terrifying, like Dressrosa level shit. But it just really helped the audience feel what Uta was feeling, the desperation, and like I said, the descent into madness. And it was kind of relatable too. Imagine viewing the world through a screen, and only a screen, and just getting feedback from people that you don't really know, but that you've touched in some way, that have been really inspired by your music, but are telling you about all these atrocities that are happening to them and how your music is helping them. And yes, this is obviously related to social media and how she was basically just a YouTuber, vlogger, whatever you want to call it, just wanting friends, which is a lot of reasons that people go to YouTube, is that their normal friend circle doesn't share the same hobbies or things. So It's clear the message the movie was relating about isolation and social media, but we're not gonna get into that. The message, I think, was pretty clear enough. But she viewed the world through the lens of her viewers, where there were hardships, and she genuinely just wanted to help. She knew just enough about the world to know that there were hardships and tragedies and corruption and inequality, but not enough about the world to know what to do about that or to help in any real healthy way. So she just made everyone drink Kool-Aid to find a happier place. Like I said, the overall plot of the movie was pretty fucking dark. Putting everyone in a dream world where they were happier, filling them with food and toys and music, and then having them not wake up so that they could be at peace. So they didn't have to face the hardships of reality. Children, just innocent citizens. She was just going to have them lost in this dream world, unconscious in the real world, and get high off of shrooms until they didn't wake up, until she died. She was going to die and take everyone with her. This is the most cult shit I've ever seen in general, let alone a happy music film read that I was kind of expecting. Maybe it just seemed very dark for a One Piece movie. Of course, we explore all of those themes in the bulk of the media itself, but to have this very popular movie have that, it was crazy, and I honestly loved it because it, again, fell away from that very stagnant plot of One Piece movies where there's a strong enemy, usually from the past, and then Luffy has to punch them really hard at the end and everyone wins. Uta was coming from a perspective of the new generation, so I felt like the beginning was fairly slow, but as the movie progressed I could kind of see why, because it really amplified the psychological thriller that this movie was going for as you meet Uta, and very slowly over the course of this concert you can see her actual plans coming to fruition, and it does, for me, it took me by surprise, because especially when you see that one shot of all the Straw Hats laying on the ground unconscious in the dark in the place that they arrived at the concert, meaning that none of this is real, but you don't get an immediate explanation of what her devil fruit is or what is happening, that was pretty terrifying. And like I mentioned, it did stray from a very fight-heavy movie. Though there was that satisfying big fight at the end, there wasn't really much throughout this movie of physical fighting, and in fact, Luffy actually strayed away from it purposefully. When they came to that first impasse of Uta wanting Luffy to quit piracy and join her in her new Genesis, it was actually really funny. He's like, alright, well, you look like you're having a lot of fun. I'm gonna go. Alright, see ya, bye! like, he just hit her with an adios and said, okay, well, you do you. I'm gonna do me. We're not agreeing here. I'm just gonna leave. I mean, this was fun. It was good to see you, but yeah, you have fun with this. I'm gonna go on and continue what I want to do. And no matter how much she antagonized him and physically went at him to try and fight him, he wouldn't have it. He wouldn't lower himself to that, and he honestly just wanted to talk, which is very un-Luffy, but it made it clear again that the villain here isn't as tangible as all the previous movies or in a typical One Piece arc. The villain was Uta's turmoil, and physically fighting that isn't possible. So talking things out and trying to solve what was actually going wrong was the best way to solve it, and so that's what Luffy did. Although he's not known for that, he does have high perception, there wasn't any reason for him to physically fight her. It just had a real emphasis on mental health versus you're mean so I'm gonna punch you. This is more like, you're clearly distressed. We need to talk this out. But I did overall like the Luffy-Uta relationship. And I thought this relationship was really interesting because, like I said before, this wasn't someone of the old era coming forward and trying to take over the world that Luffy had to defeat. This was someone of the new generation, and that was something that Luffy had to deal with. Her turnaround into a darker dream, I think, was emphasized when compared side by side by Luffy's dream, because they both had the same intention. They both wanted to make the world a better place, more free, more happy. They both started, as we saw in the flashback and the accompany me, 2 episodes that pair with the movie. that they both started off on the same note, pun intended, but ended up very different. That while Luffy had his friends in his dream and Shanks in a more supporting role, Uta was faced with isolation and betrayal from who she saw as a father, and then dealing with the intense admiration from afar kind of going to her head and warping reality, again pun intended. It twisted her perspective, quite literally, on the world. And so she ended up how we saw, very desperate to make things better, but a very twisted perversion of what Luffy is trying to do. Good intentions, just very bad conclusions. Very bad. And again, while I did enjoy the final fight, to just, you know, scratch that itch of a One Piece movie where you just want to see the characters going all out, I did enjoy the stray away from Punch Big Evil Guy. I think one of the big detriments of Stampede was that Bullet had no character. A lot of people said that he was one of the most boring villains, probably in all of One Piece. I think going in the opposite direction where, again, it was really centered on mental health and just trying to help Uta, who had lost her way and specifically was corrupted by Tot Musica. Tot Musica itself was not a villain that you saw throughout the movie, it was just a cursed sheet of music that was slowly corrupting her, and people had talked about the rumors of Tot Musica and whatnot, and you finally see it at the end, but throughout the whole movie, the rest of the movie, it's really just Uta trying to come to terms with what she was doing, but like going in a balls in, no turning back, this is what I'm gonna do, I don't care what you say. Which also, I would just want to say that the fact that she didn't know enough about the world to know really what like the admirals were, and when she came face to face with like Fujitora, she was like, oh, so you must be, or it might have been Kizaru, it might have been both of them. Like, oh, yeah, you're the admiral, right? She's just, like, sitting there cross-legged, eating her shrooms. And she's like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, you can try and stop me, but I don't really care. Like, she has no idea who these people are. And that caused a kind of crazy confidence in her. And it was fair, because, again, if she was defeated, she would have to still willingly bring them out of the dream state, so she was pretty confident in her abilities, but to see her just talk smack to an admiral face to face, Fujitora of all people, it was kind of funny to see like, oh yeah, she has no idea. She has no idea. Now it is my obligatory moment to talk about Law, and how I wish there was a little bit more Law in the movie. It was kind of weird that his like biggest contribution was pushing Bartolomeo's barrier up the hill. Like that was a really long scene. It was kind of weird to me, but although there wasn't a big Law contribution, and that's fine, oh my god, I lost my shit when CHIBI BEPO came out. I was not expecting that. I saw the Sunny, and everyone was talking about Sunny-kun, the plushies, the merch, the t-shirts, the trailer, so much about Sunny-kun. Where the fuck was Beppo-kun, okay? CHIBI BEPO? Hello? I lost my shit in the movie theater when I saw CHIBI BEPO, and this is my time to issue a formal apology to man sitting in J1, because I lost my shit several times in the movie, and I don't think he was on the same wavelength as me, so I think he was a little unamused, but this is my apology for the man in J1. But I did love the Beppo participation in the movie. Of course, in Stampede, we only got Law. I mean, we saw Beppo in the trailers with his Uta getup, which was adorable and hilarious. But to see CHIBI BEPO, oh my god. But Law helping out with Bartolomeo and Luffy. Also, I wasn't really expecting Bartolomeo in this at all. I mean, I think I saw maybe a preview of him in the trailer, but I think I really overall just suffered from the Stampede effect, where Stampede was just a culmination of literally every character. There were so many characters just in the background of it, that's just that opening scene, that it was clearly a testament, like it was really just like a fan fiction of every important character in One Piece coming together in Stampede. So one thing that I was very, very shocked by was that there was no Sabo in this movie. There were no revolutionary presences here, and I mean, plot aside, I feel like that's very interesting to not include Sabo, because I feel like he's a fan favorite. I mean, he's always in the movies. He was in Gold, he was in, of course, Stampede, and now he should have been in this movie. I mean, we had Big Mom. That was a weird one too. Was that just me? I mean, died when Katakuri came on screen. Again, formal apologies to Man in J1. Lost my shit when my boy came on screen. Just want to point that out there. But even taking the plot into consideration, such a big world-changing thing that's going on, you'd think the revolutionaries with the Marines would be right there. Because the Marines are always present, of course, in the movies, so you'd think that the revolutionaries as that third party should always be involved also, but not a single Sabo. But yeah, I was surprised at the Big Mom focus. Just personally, love Katakuri, but couldn't care less about Oven. Branch, love her, but didn't really need to have such a big focus in the movie, in my opinion, or at least maybe include Kaido? I don't know, it was very weird to me that Big Mom specifically had such a big focus in it, but I mean, it was, I guess, good to have a little bit of a switch up there now that Big Mom is. Just feel like their presence was a missed opportunity for someone cooler, like the revolutionaries, to have that part in there. But, I mean, it was pretty hot, pun intended, when Oven and Frankie clashed. Like, that was a big impact. That was pretty cool. And again, cannot stress Baby Beppo. How obsessed I am with Baby Beppo. But I do wish that Law had a little bit more to do with the plot. Like, for instance, when they tried to silence Uta, I was like, you know, asking for an awakening in the movie, which we'll get to that with Luffy. Spoilers for the manga, by the way, I guess. Also, asking for Law's awakening in the movie is asking a lot. But I mean, when they needed a sphere to make her silent, I was ready for that Our Room silence to come into play, but instead they gave it to Bartolomeo? We just introduced a new ability that he has out of nowhere? When Law can do the same thing? I know, it's a lot to ask for. It was an awakening of Law, and maybe, you know, give someone else a chance to shine, but just thought that he could have really had a moment there, but we'll let it go. Speaking of integral characters, though, I gotta give it up for Kobe. He took charge and was a very plot-centric character to get through this movie. He was initiating the trying to talk to Uta. He took charge at the end of the battle. That end outfit on Kobe? Damn. I mean, the final outfits were pretty hot on everyone. I mean, Law? Hello? And was it just me, or was Zoro and Sanji hitting different in this movie? I mean, maybe it was just like the curly hair on Sanji and like the amplified muscles on Zoro, but I'm just saying, that's enough of the fangirling section now. But I mean, have you ever seen more succulent calves? Damn. Anyway, now before we get into the Shanks conversation, I just want to say that overall I did enjoy the plot of the movie. The underlying psychological thriller that it was going for was very fascinating, and, you know, it made sense in movie plot terms. But one thing I had an issue with was, why did Shanks have to leave Uta in the first place? It just seemed very odd that if this music corrupted her and took control of her, made her into this monster that you only were able to defeat because she just fell asleep, why would you then leave Uta on that same island with the same cursed music, alone, unprotected, and in an even more depressive state? I know that Gordon, Boomer. I know that Gordon said that he was supposed to destroy the music and he just didn't, so he was supposed to do that, which probably would have solved a lot of issues here, Gordon. But why did Shanks leave? I understand that he wanted her to be a pop star, but once the entire island was destroyed, that wasn't a music academy anymore. It was ruins. They were ruins with one old guy, and Shanks thought that that was a good place to leave his, basically, a daughter? I understand wanting her to become a great singer without her running into danger and being stuck on a pirate crew, but if that's what she really wants, like, that's not up to him. But anyway, kind of weird, but plot, I guess. And again, about that Gorgo Gordon guy, my second biggest complaint is that he wouldn't tell her what actually happened after shit hit the fan. I know that it ended up being that she did know what happened, since like a year from when it happened, she did know the truth. But in Gordon's perspective, why would he wait until, like, Taught Musica was already summoned and everything has been so awful? Like, he had several chances to talk to her before things were really getting into play, and he just decided to not tell her the truth, even though her whole plan was based on that perspective, according to him. it was just weird. It seemed like very little, way too late for him to suddenly tell her what actually happened. Again, I know that she knew the whole time, but from him, it was kinda out of place. But aside from weird plot things, the integration of Shanks was perfect. Because going into this One Piece film Red with the 3 scars, you had some expectations that maybe Shanks would be involved in this movie, but then you run into that balancing act of don't show too much Shanks, because one, I personally would not want a Luffy and Shanks meeting to be in a non-canon movie. I would want that to see that happen in the manga naturally. So you can't show him too much, but then what my perspective was that he was really just kind of a clickbaity thing that like, okay, Uta was Shanks' daughter, so we're calling it Film Red, but it's really just about Uta. But no, they actually gave just enough of Shanks to make it satisfying that he was a part of the movie, and we saw like little bit of abilities. I mean, when he went up at Kizaru, that first slash, God, I lost my mind. Again, sorry, man in J1. I would have been pissed about the unapologetic taunt that Shanks was going to be in this movie, and then if he wasn't, that was going to be really unfortunate. But again, you can't, how do you have Luffy as a main character and Shanks in the movie without them meeting? So the way that they did it was perfect. The dream world versus reality world fight was executed perfectly. As soon as they mentioned about having to attack simultaneously in the same points to really take them down, I was like, please have Shanks and Luffy fight side by side, but in different realities. And that's exactly what they did. And it was perfect. The several shots of Shanks's crew and people in the reality world hit side by side with Luffy and his crew and his allies in the dream world, that whole sequence was so beautiful. And we got a good bit on Shanks' crew too. I mean, Ben Beckman catching a bullet, and who the hell was this supersonic mouth guy? I don't know who that is, but that was kind of horrifying. And of course, my favorite, the Ben Beckman and Kizaru moment was, oh, Ben Beckman. They knew what they were doing, and I am here for it. I love that scene, meme on it all the time, and the fact that they put it in this movie was fantastic. And then the final scene of this movie was just really well done. Again, it kind of made sure that we had that big fight scene at the end where you just had to punch really hard. But even more than that, it was really well choreographed. The music, of course, was fantastic. And it was just a well-written scene that they had to attack simultaneously. And who was helming these simultaneous attacks? None other than Yasopp and Usopp, which that, I know I said that I would not like a Luffy and Shanks meeting in a non-canon movie, but the little moment where Usopp was able to talk to his dad through observation haki, oh my god. We got a great spotlight from all of the Straw Hats. We got, did you catch Blue Flame Sanji? A little homage to Demon Robin. We even got a little shot of Ashura. There were some really awesome fights there, but the focus on Usopp was really great. And they implemented it really funny because Katakuri shows up, my boy, and he starts talking to Shanks. He's like, well, because of my observation haki, I'm able to talk to my sister who's in the real world. I couldn't imagine you'd understand how powerful my observation haki is. And Shanks is like, boy, who do you think you're talking to? Which, to be fair, Shanks is much younger than Katakuri. Much younger. But power scaling, we're gonna talk. Shanks is like, you think you're the only one who has observation haki, boy? Come on. And then they point towards the fact that Usopp does have it, and even Yasopp's like, yeah, my boy's got it, but he just gets a little panicked sometimes, and he just needs to calm down. Genuinely, even though that was pretty clear foreshadowing, it took me by surprise where then Usopp took a moment, and he was like, okay, I just need to calm down, and we started seeing the observation haki lighting up, and then he connects with Yasopp. Oh my god, it was so beautiful. It was the cutest and most heartwarming scene to have Yasopp and Usopp coordinating the attacks and communicating and really helming the defeat of Tot Musica. And then of course we get to the big spoiler, Gear 5. And it was actually not at all what I thought it was gonna be. Again, we're going to talk about a balancing act here. I was spoiled that there was Gear 5 in this movie, and I thought that was quite courageous of the producers to incorporate a big anime spoiler there. Maybe the anime was supposed to be caught up at this point. That's a big spoiler to have people experience it for the first time, to just see it kind of come out in a movie. That was weird, and honestly, if given the choice, I would have said just don't have it at all, because there was a lot of things, as we saw in the manga, that went into his Gear 5 awakening. Like, I don't know, he died, or at least was close to death, however you want to interpret it. So to see him just suddenly turn into it in the movie, which, you know, we're gonna get more information in the manga of how he can necessarily control it, but that initial spark of him going into it wasn't there in the movie. But I guess you could say that they did a good job of, it's kind of like if you blink you miss it. My friend actually just didn't catch it at all, but, you know, we saw the swirly, the cloud eyebrows in the face-to-face when they was going back and forth with Shanks and Luffy, and then that final shot with Shanks and Luffy like side by side, but not really, against Top Musica. We saw him in Gear 5. But I mean, even if you don't do a big spoiler, like make it an integral part of the movie, is just having it like a little Easter egg type thing, anime onlys are still gonna notice that and still gonna wonder what the hell that is. If you haven't been spoiled already, you probably, there you are, you're like, oh, what's that form? Why is he all white and with clouds? That's clearly a new form. So it's not like you could avoid spoilers by just making it a small part. And then on the other hand, go in the opposite direction, if you're gonna put Gear 5 in it, put Gear 5 in it. Once the theme of like some ancient demon god, the demon god of music, sun god with the heartbeat of liberation going against a demon god of music, hello, how cooler can you get? And I guess that's what we got, but not necessarily. It was kind of cheap, and so, you know, again, if I had to choose, I would have went with just nothing at all. So I guess the subtle incorporation of it in the movie was fair, but I feel like Gear 5 should definitely be saved for the full context of the manga and the situation with Kaido, because that's where you get the full impact of it. But then we have the other side of me, the fangirl part of me, that says, "Ooh, animated Gear 5 go brr." That was pretty fucking cool. It was just overall, regardless of the minor things that kind of were weird throughout, just my opinion. I don't know if any of you all shared the same opinions, that there were weird plot things and whatever, but let me know what you thought of the plot overall. The music was great, and I did very much enjoy the psychological thriller undertones, because did I mention psychological thriller? It was pretty dark. It was a pretty dark plot line. Like, Dressrosa, turn all the humans into toys and make their loved ones forget they ever existed. Dark shit. And it was a big step towards more of a mental health issue versus punch big strong guy. But the idea of a giant fight at the end was still included for those who cared, which honestly I did. You know, it's cool to see them all work together. And I really loved, I talked about Usopp, but I didn't really talk about Brook. I loved that Brook was one of the first people who kind of figured out her powers to get rid of it. So he was singing them all free from those sticky troubles. Oh, I get it. But he sang the notes for the lines of music that had them all trapped, so that was really cool. I wish that Brook maybe got a little bit more of a spotlight, considering he's so musical, but, you know, I'm sure they were tight for time. You know, the revolutionaries weren't in it, Law didn't get too much of a big time, but we got Baby Beppo, so I'm really not complaining. I mean, honestly, my biggest complaint was probably no Sabo, because it didn't make sense for the fan base. Sabo's always involved in movies. Also plot related, that the revolutionaries would definitely try and see what's going on here for Uta's concert. It was just really surprising that he wasn't in it. Kind of took me by surprise. I was kind of excited to see him, you know? But hey, if that's my biggest complaint, that's just to say that there really weren't any major complaints, because I really did love the music. My favorite part was the music. The dramatic music and the darker tones really reflecting Uta's emotions as the plot got darker and darker and she just kind of started losing grip on literal reality. The music really conveyed that and really enhanced it, really. It just made for an incredible experience. This was basically a musical, and that is certainly not something that we've seen in any previous One Piece movie, so that was nice in of itself to say that there was such a heavy influence and emphasis on the music. But yeah, I'm weak for some good, dark, grungy music reflecting someone's descent into madness. Just perfect. Beautiful. And that's what this movie encompassed. Again, I do intend on seeing this movie in the dubbed, because I feel like I can maybe grasp maybe details that I missed. Let me know if I did misunderstand any plot in the movie, because again, I've only seen it once, and it was subbed, so I could not get 100%. There was a lot of images flashing, sensory overload to the max, especially towards the end, so I will watch it in the dubbed, and I'm looking forward to that and seeing that experience and watching it multiple times so I can just enjoy it, because I have been listening to the soundtrack. Now that I can listen to the soundtrack, it is wonderful, and I've just been listening to all the songs. Overall, great movie. The cast was shorter, but that made for a more deeper and emotional plot, and a much more expanded antagonist, Uta. She had a lot of emotions and goals, and you could kind of sympathize and see like based on where she came from, how she got to this point. And it was pretty exciting to watch that turnaround in character side by side with Luffy, and just overall, it was more of an emotional movie, and I really enjoyed that. And we got baby CHIBI BEPO. So, what more can I say? 10 out of 10. It was a great movie. Love my boy. It was a great movie. Let me know your thoughts about the movie as well. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Although there were some plot things, did you like it anyway? What were your thoughts on the music? I feel like that's a redundant question. But regardless of the plot, like this video if you like the One Piece soundtrack for Film Red, because good God, it was beautiful. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you'll get more One Piece content. And until next time, have a great day, follow your dreams, and check me next time. Bye!